A very good morning, dear students. I welcome you to another video lecture of English. We have been doing literature since a long time, and now again it's time to come back to grammar. And we have the topic of non-finites. So what do you understand by non-finites? Non-finites is a type of verb. We have already completed with our lesson of verbs and models, and this is a continuity to the last topics which we have done. So this topic of yours is also associated with your verbs. So let us understand what is finite verb and what is non-finite verb. Although we have done it, so just a quick recap of this, and then let's see what's in store in this chapter. What are the topics that we are going to cover? Now when you will be seeing your grammar book, you must be thinking there are so many points, so many rules and so many things to remember about this topic. But do not worry, I'll try my best to simplify it for you, and after explaining you finite and non-finite verbs, I'll be letting you know exactly what are the things you should understand in order to say that yes, you know the topic well. So let's get started with the definition of the finite verbs first. As you can see on the board, it says these verbs change with change in person, number and tense. So what do you understand by person? We had done that there are three kinds of subjects: first person, second person and third person, right? So as per the person, what happens? Our verb is changed. Okay. For example, when we are talking about he, she, it, then what other verbs we can use? We can use with them is, yes, but can we use are with it? We cannot use he are eating apple. No, he is eating apple, right? So what happens? As per the subject, we decide which helping verb to use, right? Similarly, these verbs, these finite verbs, what they do? As per the subject, we decide which form of the verb we should be using. Next thing which is being mentioned is number. Now what do you understand by number? Number means something is singular or plural. Singular means one, plural means more than one. So for example, when I say that there are a group of people, so I say we are playing. But when it is alone, I who is suppose painting a picture, I will say I am painting a picture, or he is painting a picture. I don't use I are painting a picture or he are painting a picture. So similarly, finite verbs again depend upon whether it is singular or plural subject we are talking about. Next is your tense. Now what do you understand by tense? Tense tells us when an action has taken place. Is it right now, that is your present, that an action is taking place? Is it past, that is whether the action has already been taken place? Or is it your future, that the action will be taking place? So all these three factors, that is your person, first person, second person or third person, singular or plural, and past, present or future tense. All these three things, they have an impact on what verb we are going to use. Let's take an example of it. He goes to the market. So with he is a singular subject, third person. We are using goes. We are using a plural verb because we never use two singulars or two plurals together. This is the rule of subject-verb agreement. So out here with he, we are using he goes to the market. So this goes word we have decided because of presence of he out here. We decided to use the word goes out here. Okay. Next is they go to the market. Now they, with they I have not used they goes to the market. They is plural and I'll be using go because two plurals are not used together. So they go. Because of the word they, the subject they, I have chosen go as the verb in the sentence. Next is he went to the market. So he is a third person subject and it is singular also. So went, Went out here is telling me that the action has already taken place in the past. So this verb went is telling me about the past action. So it is connected to our tense. And he went. I did not write out here. He went to the market. So this was the example of your finite verbs. This was the example of your finite verbs. So finite verbs depend on these three factors, that is your person, number and tense. Now what do you understand by non-finite verbs? Non-finite verbs are just the opposite. So how I'm saying they are opposite? Exactly on all the three factors on which finite depends, they are just not bothered about them. They don't depend on it. For example, the definition says these verbs do not change with change in person, number or tense. These verbs do not change. Do not change is an important line you need to understand for the definition, that they don't change as per the change in the subject. For example, whether I'm saying he, whether I'm saying we, whether I'm saying I, whether I'm saying they, the verb is going to remain same. It will have no effect. You already have noticed we means plural, I means singular. So irrespective of the number, no effect is there in the verb. Again on tense, for example, if I'm talking about present or I'm talking about the past or maybe the future, nothing is going to affect the verb. The verb will remain in the same state. And how I'm saying it's going to stay in the same state, you can see with the help of the example here. He wants to go to the market. He is the subject and to go is the verb out here. So what does he want? He wants to go. So out here to go I have used. Okay. Next line, he wanted to go to the market. Now once tell me this is a present tense. It is a simple present tense sentence. I came to know by seeing this word once. It is showing that it is a present tense sentence, but to go verb out here remains same. He wanted to go to the market. Now wanted word is telling me that this is a sentence of past tense. Yet the word to go remains same. I have not changed the form of to go into goes. I am still using go. I am not using went either. What am I using? I am using to go. It remains same. Next, they want to go to the market. Now want is again your desire. They out here it is showing plural. It is showing number. So the number of your subject has changed. That means now it is plural we are talking about. But still what happens? We still use the word to go in our sentence. We are still using the word to go in our sentence. We have not changed its form. So we have seen in the example, in the first one, he wants, this was a present tense sentence, yet we used to go. He wanted, it was a past tense sentence, yet I chose to choose write out here to go. They want, now they out here is plural. The number has changed, yet I am using to go only. So you can see by comparing the examples what's the difference between finite and non-finite verbs. Now your topic is non-finites, right? So it is these kinds of verbs which we are concerned about, and non-finites are further divided into many categories, and those categories I'll be showing you with the help of a chart on the board so that you come to know what are the topics we are supposed to understand in order to understand the non-finite verbs. Till here I hope it's clear to all of you. So let's move ahead and see what's the next topic which we need to explore. So here I am, like I said, with an overview of the lesson, and you can see on the board the different headings that we need to cover under the chapter non-finites. So broadly there are three things you need to understand in order to understand non-finite verbs. The first thing is gerund, second is your infinitive, third is your participle. Now, in the beginning, talking about the gerund, you can see what is written, verb plus ing. So which verbs are gerund? The first thing is, when we are using a gerund, it means we are using the base verb and we are using an ing with it. For example, if my base verb is play, then I am using ing with it and I am using playing as a whole. And another thing for it to become a gerund is that it should function as a noun in the sentence. So this in detail I'll be discussing with you when I talk about the topic gerund. Till now, I just want you people to have this much of idea that 2 points you need to remember about gerund. We use we plus ing, verb base form plus ing, and how is this verb used in a sentence? In a sentence, we use the noun form of this verb. This verb is used as a noun in the sentence. Next, we have our infinitives. Infinitives are again classified into 3 types. The first one is noun infinitive, second one is adjectival infinitive, third one is adverbial infinitive. And as these words suggest, for example, noun infinitive. So when an infinitive is going to act like a noun in the sentence, then it will be referred as noun infinitive. Similarly, when it acts like an adjective, so it is adjectival infinitive. As an adverb, it is adverbial infinitive. Then I have written 2 things out here under the heading of infinitives. Like I said about gerund, that verb plus ing is used. Similarly, for infinitive, we use to plus the verb. For example, if I talk again about the word play, so I will be using to play. I will be using to play. And then I have given a slash and I have just written the verb. So sometimes what happens, even we can just use the verb without using to in it. So we can just write play also. And again, when we are using an infinitive, only when we are using its verb, we are not using the word to in front of it, it is referred as a bare infinitive. It is referred as a bare infinitive. And when we are using to, then basically we can classify into 3 forms out here. Okay. And the words noun, the word adjectival, the word adverbial. In order to understand these infinitives, you should be aware about what is a noun. Like noun is the name of a place, person, thing, quality, feeling, etc. So you should remember it. Again, for adjectives, what is an adjective? An adjective is word that tells us something more about a noun. What is an adverb? Adverb is something which tells us more about a verb. Okay. So these things you should know, because when you will notice your verbs are performing these actions in a sentence, then you will be able to identify whether it is acting like a noun or an adjective or an adverb in the sentence. Next, come to the participle. In participle, you have used as a word or adjective. So how do we use participles in a sentence? We use it in the form of a verb or we use it in the form of an adjective. Just now I have talked with you what an adjective means. Next, it can be classified into present participle, secondly past participle, and third is your perfect participle. In present participle, the rule is verb plus ing. What is the rule? The rule is verb plus ing. For example, play plus ing becomes playing. So this is my form of the verb, which is present participle. Past participle uses third form of the word. So third form, for example, eat, ate, eaten. So which is the third form? Eaten. So the past participle uses the third form of the verb. That means we'll be using eaten if I'm talking about the verb eat. If I'm talking about the word play, then play, played, played. So I'll be using the word played out there, or eaten. Next you have perfect participle. Perfect participle, we are going to use the word having. Having plus you're going to use what? V3. Perfect, we are going to use again V3, but along with V3, what is the change in it? We are also going to use the word having. So how is past and perfect different? Past uses third form, perfect also uses third form of the verb, but perfect uses having word, which is an additional thing, so that you need to remember. Still, after discussing these few points, there's a possibility you might be confused or worried about the things that we are going to study further. But dear students, we are going to study all these topics using examples of various sentences, and then I'm sure you're going to understand all the topics clearly. These were just an overview of a few rules, and I think in the previous classes also you people have already studied that in infinitives we always add to make a verb into infinitive. In participles we add ing, but now you people are in class 7, so you are going to add on to your previous knowledge, and we will learn about all these segregation. So let's get started with it, okay? Let's start with the topic gerunds. And to understand gerunds, although you have already come to know about 2 points, that we will be using verb base form plus ing, and also we'll be seeing that it is used as a noun in a sentence. Let's first go ahead with the definition and a few examples of different sentences and different situations in which you can identify a gerund in a sentence. The definition says, these are words that are formed with verb acting as noun. This is something very important which you need to know, that gerunds act as noun. Gerunds are verb in its ing form. So we know that gerunds are verbs, but they are always in ing form. This is another thing that you have to remember. Acting as name of an activity. Now dear students, when we talk about noun, we think of names of places, persons, things, quality, etc. But in sentences where we are talking about gerunds, gerunds will be always acting as a name of an activity. It will not be acting as a name of a person. So you just have to try to notice in a sentence what is the name of an activity. So this is another point, activity, and it is not going to act as name of a person or other things, okay? So these are the things you need to remember about the definition of gerunds. Now let's see the examples. The first one, gerund as subject. Now many students get confused with the fact, or they think that this is a formula to identify a gerund. They just think that always gerunds are the subject in a sentence. That means the first word or what is being talked about, that is your gerund. But dear students, gerund can also be used as an object. It can also be used as a complement. That is why I am going to give you 3 types of examples in 3 different type of situations we'll be discussing. The first one is where gerund is acting as a subject. Now what is a subject? I'm sure all of you know. The topic on which we are talking, or about the person about whom we are talking, the place about which we are talking. What is the topic of discussion? That is your subject in a sentence, right? So in the first sentence, writing is an exchange of idea. What is writing? Writing is an exchange of idea. Out here, nobody is writing something. Did I say Rohan is writing a letter? No. We are just talking about the habit of writing. So no action is actually taking place, yet we know writing is a verb. And out here, if it is acting not only as a subject, if I ask you what is being discussed in the sentence, you will say, ma'am, we are discussing about writing, and we have come to know it is exchanging different kinds of ideas. But at the same time, writing is, you can see it is a verb in its ing form. It is a subject, and writing is a verb, but it is acting like a noun. And why it is acting like a noun? We know name of anything is a noun. Now if I ask you the question, what is an exchange of idea? For example, when I ask you what is your name, you will immediately tell me. For example, I'll say it's Seema. Out here, what is the name of the thing that is an exchange of idea? So you will tell me, ma'am, it is writing. So the question to the answer what is being answered here, and out here writing is acting like a noun. So I hope you have understood it is acting like the name of an activity as per our definition. Noun because it is a name and it is a name of an activity. Writing is a name of an activity and it is an example of a gerund acting as a subject in a sentence. So this is our gerund. Next, reading helps a lot in learning new things. First of all, if I ask you the question, what are we talking about? What is the topic of discussion out here? So you will say, ma'am, we are talking about reading. And I will ask you, okay, what information do you have about reading? Then you will tell me, if we are in the habit of reading, we will learn so many things. So what we are talking about? We are talking about reading. So we are talking about reading, so it is a subject. And another thing which we find out here is reading is also answering to the question what. What is the name of the thing that is going to help you in learning a lot new things? So your answer will be reading. So out here it is the name of an activity. Okay. For example, if I say I like to swim. Out here swim, when I'm using the word swim, or I like swimming in the pool. So when I'm using the word swimming, I'm talking about what? I like to swim is an action. And when I say swimming is good for health, and the question will be what is good for health? The answer will be swimming. Swimming out here is not an action that is happening. Swimming out here is actually what? It is a name of an activity. So that is why swimming is a good exercise. Swimming word will be an example of gerund because the word swim plus ing becomes swimming. This is the subject as well as it is also the topic about which we are talking, and it is name of a something, name of an activity. It is a name of an activity. That is why it is a gerund. So in these three examples, two on the board and the right now which one I have discussed about swimming, that is an example of gerund acting as a subject. It is in the place of a subject in a sentence. Now let's move ahead to the second part, gerund as an object. So in the topic verbs, we have already understood what is an object. We had also understood what is direct object, what is indirect object. That portion we have already done. Still, if you have any confusion, so you need to refer to the old video first. And out here we will see how gerund is acting as an object. Mary enjoys cooking a lot. We are talking about Mary, what Mary likes or what Mary doesn't like. So our subject out here is Mary. Our subject is not any gerund out here. Enjoys. So enjoys, till here it is what? You have done transitive and intransitive verbs. So you know that out here an object is required, right? And what is the object used here? Cooking a lot. Now here cooking, cook plus ing. So gerund is always in the ing form, first thing. Now if I ask you the question, what does Mary enjoy? Your answer will be the name of the thing that Mary enjoys is cooking. So again, cooking cooking is not an action which Mary is performing. I'm not telling Mary is cooking a dish for you, or Mary is cooking something. I'm just saying she likes cooking. So out here cooking is the name of an activity. That is why again cooking becomes my gerund and it is in the object portion of the sentence. Next example, I love dancing. I love dancing. About whom are we talking? We are talking about I. What is the subject? I. It is not a gerund. What is the verb out here? I love. The question will be, what do you love? So your object is dancing. Now dance plus ing form, dancing. So we have a verb in its ing form and it is acting like a noun. Why it is acting like a noun? Because it is telling me the name of the activity or thing which I like to do, which I love. And I love dancing. So out here dancing is name of an activity. If I would say I am dancing, that means right now I am dancing, I am doing an action. But I am not doing any action. I said I love dancing. So what do I love? Dancing. So dancing is the name of the thing which I love to do. So name of anything is a noun. So we come to know out here gerund. Dancing is gerund because it is verb in the ing form and because it is acting like a noun, it is a name of the activity. So all the three aspects of our definition have been fulfilled by this verb. Next is gerund as complement. Now gerund can also be used as a complement in a sentence and we will see some examples. Kirti's favorite hobby is playing the piano. So about whom are we talking? We are talking about Kirti. The subject is Kirti. And Kirti's favorite hobby. I will ask you the question, what is Kirti's favorite hobby? You will say playing piano. So playing out here is not an action that is right now taking place because Kirti is not playing the piano. She is not taking her music lessons. She is not playing the piano. But we are just talking about the name of the thing that she plays, that she likes. So she likes playing the piano. So out here the word playing is an example of gerund because it is a name of an activity and it is in its ing form. Okay, and it is acting like a noun. So playing is an example of gerund and it is a complement in the sentence. Kirti's favorite hobby is playing the piano. Next sentence is competition is trying to do better than your opponent. So what are we talking about? We are talking about competition. What is the subject of the sentence? The subject of the sentence is competition. And out here you can see the word trying. Trying, try plus ing. It is in the ing form, first thing. Another thing, if I ask you competition is, what is competition? What do you understand by the word competition? You mean it is trying. Trying what? Trying to do better than your opponent. So it is a part of the complement and out here the word is trying. Competition is trying. If I put a full stop out here. So competition is trying. What is competition? The answer will be trying. It is the name of an activity. To try is to do something, right? It is an action. If I say Rohit is trying to work hard. Okay, so he is doing something. But out here what is happening? It is a name. If I tell how to improve or what should improve Rohit's performance, trying is going to improve his performance. So in the sentence, trying is going to improve his performance. Trying is the name of the activity which is going to improve his performance and the word trying is going to be your gerund. So by the end of the discussion of these 6 examples, I'm sure you have come to know what is a gerund. Gerund is always a verb in its ing form. Second most important thing, it acts as a noun in a sentence. Now nouns definition, if we refer, we know nouns are naming words. But out here, is it naming any person? No. Gerunds are naming words, but they name an activity or an action. But that action is not happening in the sentence. This is exactly what you noticed. Writing is an exchange of an idea, but did I tell that someone is writing right now? No. Reading is an action, but is anyone reading? Did I name someone who is reading? No. It is an activity, the name of an activity that is going to help us to learn further. So we also noticed that gerund can be used as a subject, gerund can be used as an object also, and gerund can also be used as a complement. So there is no shortcut formula or wrong assumptions that people have that gerund is always in the beginning of a sentence. No, you have to understand it by the three main points of the definition, that it acts as a noun, it is in its ing form, and it is naming an activity. So I hope this topic is clear to you. The rest two topics, that is your infinitives and your participles, I will be sharing in another video lecture with you. So far, I think this much is enough to brief you up about this lesson. I hope it's clear to you. In case of any doubts, feel free to ask in your offline as well as online classes. So all the best with this particular topic. I hope you enjoy doing it.